Hello everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to paint a simple watercolor sunset using just primary colors. The first thing that I'm doing is I'm taking some blue and I've added a lot of water to it, and I'm doing a wash, which is when you take very watered down paint and use a larger flat brush to just fill in a large area, mostly what is going to be used for the main base layer in your watercolor painting. So I'm going ahead with the blue and filling my paper about a third of the way up. I'm also adding some blue at the top of the page. So I'm just adding now another little strip of blue near the top of my paper and bringing that down about a third of the way as well. Now I'm taking some red, again very watered down, and with the same brush I'm going up from my blue area and I'm overlapping slightly with the blue, and it's still wet, so you get a really nice seamless gradation from blue to the light red. And as you're painting, if you see any streaks or anything that isn't smooth, you can always just keep brushing back and forth over it with water until it's blended as well as you'd like. But since both colors we're using are still wet, they should blend and bleed together pretty well on their own. So right now I go from blue to red on the bottom and blue to red also on the top, and I have some plain white in the middle, which now I'm going to fill with yellow. And again, as I fill in this white space with yellow with the same larger flat brush, I'm overlapping with my red slightly as I brush back and forth in the same direction across the paper so that we get a really nice blend between the two. So now our base is really light where you can hardly see the color, but we're going to add some bolder tones over it. So I'm taking my yellow again with less water and using a medium-sized flat brush this time. I'm just brushing across to make the horizon line with the yellow, darkening it up. And now with a round brush that comes to a point at the end, I'm making an outline for where I want my sun to be. I have my sun so it's setting, and so I'm streaking some yellow out from around that outline I just made also. So now we just have a little half circle with some yellow blended around it. Now using my medium-sized flat brush again, I am holding it a little bit at an angle and just using the tip of it, and I'm just streaking some lines of blue going horizontally across. And this time I have less water in my blue, so you can see it's a lot darker than the base we put down. And I'm going in from both sides and just adding some of these darker blue streaks that are going to imply the ripples that you often see on the water. And now I'm going with just some plain water, and I'm using the whole width of my brush to brush across the darker blue I just put down and blend it together. You want to see some light and dark variation, but you don't want to see stripes going across. And now I'm doing the same process a little further up, kind of encroaching into my red area, where I'm making some streaks with the tip of my brush in the darker blue and then blending over the whole thing with water to smooth it out. And now I'm doing the same technique just with red. So I've rinsed out my brush and now holding it at an angle and just using the tip of my brush so that I can get some thin streaks. I'm just going across from both sides with some red over both the red area and kind of overlapping with my blue area a little bit. And then I'm rinsing off my brush and blending over it with just plain water to smooth it out. And don't worry if this doesn't come out how you want it right away. It does take practice. And these go pretty quick, so you could even do a couple of these, and you will see improvement as you keep practicing. So I'm just adding a little bit of blue to my horizon also, because the water is primarily blue, even though it has these other colors from the sunset reflecting in it. So I still want blue to be primarily what you see as you look at the water. So along that left side, I'm just adding a little bit of dark blue streaks coming in. And also from the right side, but I'm leaving the area around the sun without any of the dark blue, because that's where the reflections would be the strongest. So using the same technique with our same medium-sized flat brush, I'm just blending in some more of the blue. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing where I just get some plain water and blend over my streaks to work them into everything else. So that way you have a nice blend and you don't see individual stripes. It just looks like ripples on the water. And I'm also using water to blend out the tips of my streaks so that they get lighter as they come close to the sun. And now I'm going to start adding the clouds. So we're really going to have fun with this. I'm starting with my blue, and in the top blue area, I've got a little bit of water in my paint, and I'm using a large round brush, and I'm painting in circular motions. So I have my brush held at a little bit of an angle so that I can get a wider brush stroke on the paper, and I'm just pressing down and squiggling my brush around in circular motions to make cloud shapes. And you want your clouds to not be all uniform. You want them to get bigger and then skinnier and to be all different shapes and sizes. It looks way more natural actually if they're very uneven rather than if you try to make them really symmetrical, because in real life they would not be that way. So then after I've made my cloud shapes, I rinse my brush off and I'm just going with some plain water along the edges of my clouds, especially along the bottom, and moving in a circular motion still, I'm just blending out the edges with that water and drawing out the paint a little bit so that it goes from dark to light and has that fluffy, airy look that you would get from clouds. Moving down, now I'm using red, and I'm making some smaller clouds that might look like they're going back further into the distance with my red, using the same circular motions. And I'm also blending some red into the bottom edges, overlapping with my blue clouds. So you want all the colors that you're using to be integrated together, similar to what we did with the water. And now I've rinsed off my brush, and with just plain water, I'm blending along the edges of my clouds, still moving in a circular motion, just so you don't have any hard edges. So you want your clouds to look light and airy and transparent. Now I'm just adding a little more red to some of the blue clouds at the top of the page so that our colors are mixed together everywhere. So there's a little bit of each color we're using in every area of the page. I'm just continuing to blend out anywhere where I have hard edges with water and moving in that circular motion so that I'm spreading out the ink and blending it with, or spreading out the paint, and blending it with the blue. I've been doing a lot of ink and water painting too, so sorry for my misspeaking. Now I'm adding Next, some little tiny red clouds. They're gonna look like they're really flowing off into the distance, really far away, near the horizon line. And this is giving us the illusion of depth. So for these, I'm still moving in a circular motion, but I'm really just spotting really quickly so that we get these little small clouds kind of floating into the distance around where the sunset is. And now I'm grabbing some yellow and circular motions again. I'm adding some little yellow highlights along this area near where the sun is. Just a couple little spots in those small red clouds at the bottom. And I'm going to bring the yellow up a little bit too into my other red clouds, but just really concentrating the yellow mostly around that bottom area where the sun is glowing. And I also want to add some yellow reflections back into my horizon. So we're doing a lot of layering. So I'm going back to my medium-sized flat brush and just using the tip, holding it at a bit of an angle. I'm making some thin yellow streaks with just a little bit of water in my paint so it comes out really bold, just right underneath the area where the sun would be reflecting onto the water. I'm also going and adding a little more depth with the blue to the bottom of the page, kind of the bottom third, where we see mostly blue. I'm putting another layer of blue, which will darken it up and add a little more contrast, using the same technique we've been using to put the streaks on the water. Oftentimes, as you keep adding to your painting, like we did with the sky, you'll see that some of the areas that you added first need to be darkened up or need some more color added to them to balance out with the new parts of your picture you just painted. So you can always keep layering, going from light to dark with your watercolor paints. It's always a lot easier to add more dark hues later than to try to lighten it back up after you've already made it too dark. So you can start out light and always continue to layer. So now I'm going and layering some more red over as well to make that a little bit bolder. So I'm going over the areas where I already have red streaks and just putting another layer so that it's a little bit bolder and not as pastel. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial today. I really hope you enjoyed trying this at home. And again, you can use any 3 colors you want and really make it your own. Thank you.